The midday sun blazed over Willow Ridge, a sleepy town halfway between Arlington and nowhere. Cars coasted along Main Street, windows down, summer air thick with heat and humidity. At the intersection near Carter's Diner, a worn-out Dodge Ram rolled to a gentle stop. Behind the wheel sat a man in a plain black t-shirt and jeans, unremarkable to most. That is, until the flashing lights behind him flared red and blue. Officer Dana Brooks, 32, stepped out of her cruiser, sunglasses in place, posture rigid. Her partner, Officer Kevin Lang, followed, resting a hand on his belt like he meant business. "License and registration," Dana demanded, tone already sharp. The man nodded calmly, reaching into his pocket. "Sure thing, officer." His name, Caleb Jennings. What the officers didn't know, he was a tomb guard, one of the rare few entrusted with guarding the tomb of the unknown soldier. But today, out of uniform behind the wheel of a dusty truck, no one saw that. Dana squinted at his ID. "Caleb Jennings, where you headed?" "Home," he answered. Kevin glanced at the truck's dented fender and worn tires. "Truck's seen better days. You sure it's safe? It passes inspection." Caleb replied evenly. "Step out of the vehicle," Dana ordered. "We're doing a vehicle search." Crowds began to form, locals sipping iced tea, stepping out of stores, pulling out their phones. Caleb complied, calm, silent, military discipline etched into every movement. He didn't argue. Dana frowned as she patted him down. Her hand paused when she felt the metallic badge inside his wallet. She pulled it out, scoffing. "What's this? A souvenir?" "No," Caleb said quietly. "That's my badge." A gust of wind blew. Something was shifting. And 5 minutes later, the military would arrive. Dana held the small silver badge between her fingers, squinting at it with mock amusement. "You carry this around like it means something." Caleb didn't move. "It does." Kevin leaned in. "What is it exactly?" "It's a Tomb Guard identification badge," Caleb replied, calm but firm. "One of the rarest in the military." Dana smirked. "Sounds made up." By now the crowd was growing. More townspeople filtered out from shops and diners, phones raised, murmuring. Caleb's truck, old but reliable, sat behind him like a loyal dog. But the focus was on him now, this quiet man who hadn't raised his voice once. Linda Carter, owner of the nearby diner, stepped out onto the sidewalk. She recognized Caleb instantly. He'd been coming in for coffee after his shifts at Arlington. She narrowed her eyes as she watched Dana press harder. "You military?" Kevin asked, sounding more curious than accusatory now. "Yes, 3rd U.S. Infantry Regiment." "The old guard," Caleb said. "I just got off shift," Dana scoffed. "Don't see a uniform, I'm off duty." "Convenient," she muttered, then turned toward her cruiser. Running his ID, Kevin stayed back, watching Caleb more thoughtfully now. "You really a tomb guard?" "Yes." Kevin scratched his chin, hesitant. "Didn't know they gave out badges." "They don't, not easily." "Less than 700 living recipients," Caleb said. Linda was already dialing Fort Meyer from inside the diner. "You need to get someone down here. Caleb Jennings is being harassed by local PD." Back outside, Dana returned from the cruiser. "Clean record, but I'm not convinced you're fit to drive." Caleb's voice didn't change. "I've complied. I've broken no laws." Refusing to cooperate, Dana declared. "Get ready to be cuffed." And just then, from down the street, engines began to rumble. A low, steady roar rolled through the streets of Willow Ridge. The crowd turned, eyes drawn to the sound. Around the corner came 2 military Humvees, tires crunching over asphalt, engines humming with purpose. Kevin stepped back, brows lifting in disbelief. "What the—" Dana stiffened, unsure whether to posture or panic. The convoy came to a precise stop across from the scene. Doors opened in unison. 8 soldiers stepped out, uniforms immaculate, their posture unmistakably elite. At their front was a commanding woman, her eyes sharp and unyielding beneath her patrol cap. "Captain Laura Finch, U.S. Army," she announced, marching directly to Caleb. "Sergeant Jennings, are you okay?" Caleb gave a respectful nod. "Yes, ma'am." "A little misunderstanding." Captain Finch turned to Dana and Kevin. "Who's in charge here?" Dana cleared her throat. "Officer Brooks, Willow Ridge PD. We stopped this man for suspicious behavior." Finch's gaze turned cold. "Suspicious? This man is a tomb guard. Do you even know what that means?" Dana flinched. He wasn't in uniform. His truck's beat up. "That truck has carried him home after guarding the most sacred monument in this country," Finch said. "You judged based on appearance, not duty." Not service. Kevin took a step back, uneasy. We didn't know. That's the problem, Finch snapped. You didn't ask. Caleb stood silently, hands behind his back, his badge now clutched firmly. The crowd murmured, phones still filming, but now in awe. Linda had stepped outside again, arms crossed, watching justice unfold. Captain Finch looked back at Caleb. Would you like to press charges? No, ma'am, he replied calmly. I just want to go home. Finch turned to Dana. Then you will apologize. Dana hesitated, pride flickering, then shame crept in. Silence held the street hostage, even the wind stilled. All eyes were on Dana Brooks. Captain Finch's command hung heavy in the air. You will apologize. Dana's jaw clenched. Her hand twitched near her belt, as if instinctively seeking control. But there was none to be found here, not in this moment. She looked around at the crowd, at Kevin's uneasy stance, and finally at Caleb. He didn't look angry. He looked tired. I'm sorry, she said at last, voice flat. Try again, Finch said, arms crossed. Dana's shoulders fell slightly. She took off her sunglasses and looked directly at Caleb. Sergeant Jennings, she said more earnestly, I apologize. I misjudged you. I let assumptions guide my actions, and I disrespected your service. I was wrong. Caleb gave a quiet nod. Apology accepted. Kevin stepped forward, voice awkward but honest. I'm sorry too, man. I didn't mean to treat you like that. Caleb nodded again, his calm unchanged. Captain Finch exhaled through her nose, then faced the crowd. Let this be a lesson. Honor doesn't always come in a clean uniform or a shiny truck. Sometimes it walks among us quietly. People lowered their phones, visibly moved. Linda from the diner clapped once, breaking the spell. Others followed. Applause echoed faintly down the street. Finch turned to Caleb. Do you need an escort home? No, Captain. I'll manage. She nodded, then saluted him sharply. Caleb returned it, every movement crisp and precise. As the Humvees pulled away, Dana and Kevin stood like statues, still processing what had just happened. And Caleb? He walked back to his old truck like nothing had ever happened. But something had shifted, in them, in the town, and in everyone watching. Later that afternoon, Caleb sat at his usual booth in Carter's diner. The coffee in front of him steamed gently. Across from him sat Dana and Kevin, invited by Linda, insisted by Caleb. The diner buzzed with murmurs, but no one approached. They watched from a respectful distance. Linda filled their mugs. No charge. But maybe today, serve each other some humility. Dana cleared her throat. Why didn't you tell us who you were, Sergeant? Caleb sipped his coffee, then answered, If I have to explain my worth, then maybe I haven't earned it yet. Kevin leaned forward, curious. Is it true what the captain said? You guard the tomb in Arlington? Yes, Caleb replied. 3rd Infantry Regiment. 24-hour shifts, 21 steps, 21 seconds, rain or shine. Dana blinked. Why so precise? Because it matters, Caleb said. Every unknown soldier buried there gave everything. We owe them perfection. Kevin shook his head slowly. Man, I had no idea. That badge, it looked so simple. It's not, Caleb said. 9 months of training. Most don't make it. One mistake and you start over. Dana looked down. I became a cop to protect people. Today, I made someone feel small. You forgot to look deeper, Caleb said gently. We all do sometimes. Linda smiled softly from behind the counter. Caleb looked out the window at his old truck. It doesn't matter how shiny things look, he added. It's about what they've carried. Dana nodded slowly, finally understanding. And in that little booth, something important happened. An officer listened. A soldier forgave, and respect was quietly restored. The next day, Captain Finch stood inside Sheriff Tom Harlan's office. He was a thick-set man in his 50s, with tired eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. He'd heard what happened with Caleb Jennings, and he wasn't proud of it. I'm not here to ruin careers, Finch said. I'm here to make sure this doesn't happen again. Sheriff Harlan nodded. What do you suggest? Education, she said. Your officers come to Fort Meyer. They'll learn what a tomb guard is, what the old guard stands for, what that badge really means. Harlan rubbed his chin. We've never done anything like that. Exactly why we need it. He leaned forward. Will my people be embarrassed? Finch didn't blink. They'll be enlightened. After a pause, Harlan nodded. Done. I'll send Brooks and Lang first. Finch stood. Good. The goal isn't punishment, it's respect. As she left, she added, Tell them to leave their egos at the door. Back at the precinct, Dana and Kevin received a notice. We're going where? Kevin blinked. Fort Meyer, Dana said quietly. Guess we're about to meet more like him. Kevin chuckled nervously. Think they'll yell at us? Dana shrugged. Maybe, but I deserve it. For the first time in her career, Dana felt something unfamiliar, humility. And Caleb? He was back at Arlington, walking his post. The world moved fast outside those gates. But inside that tomb's silence, every step he took echoed with purpose. Fort Meyer stood like a fortress of discipline. The gates opened slowly as Dana and Kevin's patrol car rolled inside. Neither spoke. Their uniforms looked clean, but inside they didn't feel ready. A young soldier greeted them at the front desk. You're the Willow Ridge officers? That's us, Kevin said, trying to sound casual. Captain Finch is waiting. They were led through spotless halls, into a room filled with history, photos of guards, medals, folded flags. Captain Finch stood at the front. Welcome. Dana cleared her throat. We're ready to learn. Finch nodded. Good. Let's start. She walked them through the tomb's rituals. The 21 steps, the flawless uniforms, the night watches, the training failures, the standard, absolute perfection. Dana was stunned. 9 months for just a badge? Finch handed her a replica. This badge isn't earned. It's lived. They watched footage of guards standing through hurricanes, refusing relief even during lightning storms. Never flinching. This is discipline. This is honor. It's not for show, Finch said. It's for the nameless, the forgotten. By the end, Dana sat quietly, badge in hand, eyes wide. Kevin swallowed hard. I used to think we had the hardest job. You still have a sacred one, Finch said. But never assume a man's worth by his truck, his clothes, or your first impression. They drove back in silence, changed. Dana looked at the horizon. We failed him, Kevin nodded, but we're fixing it. And far away, Caleb Jennings marched. 21 steps, pause, 21 seconds, a silent reminder that respect must be earned and learned. Colonel James Whitmore stepped out of the armored Humvee, his boots hitting the asphalt with purpose. His ribbons gleamed in the sun, and his steely expression silenced the murmurs in the crowd. 2 sergeants flanked him, scanning the scene. Dana took an unconscious step back. Sir, this is a routine traffic stop, she stammered. Whitmore looked past her and walked directly to Caleb. Sergeant Jennings, are you all right? Yes, sir. You're dismissed. Your presence is requested at Fort Meyer immediately. Dana blinked. He's a sergeant? I thought... Whitmore turned sharply. You thought wrong. He's not just a sergeant. He is part of the 3rd U.S. Infantry Regiment, the Old Guard. He guards the tomb of the unknown soldier. That badge you scoffed at, it's earned through discipline and sacrifice. The crowd was frozen. A couple of veterans in the back saluted instinctively. Kevin's face went pale. We didn't know. You didn't ask, Whitmore snapped. You profiled. You disrespected. For the first time, Caleb's eyes hardened. I gave everything to serve a country I love, and yet, in plain clothes, I'm treated like a threat. Colonel Whitmore stepped closer to the officers. This man is more than a soldier. He is a symbol of honor, and today, you tried to strip that away. Dana opened her mouth to apologize, but the colonel held up his hand. Save it. You'll be apologizing to more than him. Sirens wailed again in the distance, this time military police. The colonel turned. Escort Sergeant Jennings to the base. He has a ceremony to prepare for. The last thing the crowd saw was Caleb getting into the Humvee, not as a suspect but as a hero, and the officers left behind, drowning in their own shame. The Humvee rumbled through the secure gates of Fort Meyer. Soldiers snapped to attention as Colonel Whitmore and Caleb exited the vehicle. No words were needed. His presence alone spoke volumes. Inside the barracks, a young private waited with a fresh uniform. Sergeant Jennings, the tomb relief ceremony is at 1,700 hours. They're expecting you. Caleb nodded, his mind shifting from confrontation to duty. There was something grounding about stepping into the uniform again, the white gloves, the perfectly polished shoes, the tailored blues. With every piece, his identity returned, piece by piece. A fellow tomb guard approached and saluted. Heard you had an interesting afternoon, sir. Caleb smiled faintly. You could say that, in the locker room, he stood before the mirror. Gone was the man in a dusty truck. In his place stood a sentinel, calm, dignified, unwavering. He thought of his grandfather, who'd served before him, and the soldiers whose names were never known. That was who he honored, not just in uniform, but every moment of every day. Colonel Whitmore entered quietly. The Secretary of Defense is aware of what happened, and there's interest from higher up. Caleb raised an eyebrow. You represented this nation well today, even when they didn't deserve your patience. They're drafting an official response. I wasn't looking for that, Caleb said. I know, which is why it matters more. As the ceremony neared, Caleb walked toward the parade field. With every step, the sun dipped lower, casting golden rays over Arlington. The city buzzed below, unaware that one of its quietest protectors had endured insult and risen above it. He tightened his gloves. Duty called again, and Caleb Jennings, as always, answered with grace. News traveled fast. By morning, every major network was replaying the footage. Headlines screamed, "Decorated tomb guard harassed by local cops, military response silences Town Sergeant Jennings," a symbol of silent strength. Clips showed the moment Caleb stood motionless while being patted down, and the moment Colonel Whitmore arrived. Social media erupted. Veterans groups rallied in support. Even the president released a statement. No one who serves this nation should be treated with anything less than dignity. Back in Willow Ridge, the townspeople were rattled. Dana Brooks and Kevin Lang had been suspended pending investigation. The mayor issued a public apology and begged Caleb to visit and speak. At Fort Meyer, Caleb remained quiet amid the storm. He performed his shifts, walked the mat, and ignored the media frenzy. But when offered the chance to speak in front of the camera, he finally agreed. On one condition: the focus would be on the unknowns, not him. In a televised interview, Caleb looked directly into the lens. The tomb of the unknown soldier is not about one man, it's about every man and woman who never came home. I stand for them, that's all. The interviewer paused. But how did you stay so calm during the stop? Caleb answered softly, because my oath doesn't disappear when I take off the uniform. His words resonated. In living rooms across America, people sat a little straighter. Parents told their children about sacrifice. Young recruits cited him as inspiration. And somewhere, deep within the Arlington Hills, the wind whispered past the white marble tomb. The nation had seen the man behind the silence, and they would not forget him again. Colonel Mattis stood tall in front of the crowd, his uniform crisp, his ribbons telling stories of wars most would never understand. He glanced once at Caleb, then turned to the stunned officers and civilians around him. This man, he began, voice firm yet respectful, isn't just a soldier. He's one of only a few elite tomb guards, the sentinels who walk beside the unknown soldier, 24 hours a day, rain or shine. You don't question their discipline, you honor it. Dana opened her mouth to object, but the colonel raised a hand. Silence. You detained him without cause. You humiliated a man who's endured grueling training to protect something sacred. Kevin looked down at his boots. The crowd stood in absolute silence. Caleb stood a few paces behind, his expression unreadable. Colonel Mattis turned to him. Sergeant Jennings, we regret this deeply. On behalf of the U.S. Army, I thank you, and I'm here to escort you to your destination personally. Caleb simply nodded. Reporters scrambled to capture the moment as more military vehicles rolled in. The town square now looked more like a secured zone than a sleepy corner of America. The colonel addressed the crowd one last time. Let today remind everyone, judgment without knowledge leads to disgrace. Learn who you're dealing with before assuming the worst. And with that, he saluted Caleb. Caleb returned the salute with precision. Even the skeptical townsfolk felt something shift. As the convoy prepared to leave, Dana muttered to Kevin, "We messed up bad." Kevin whispered back, "We just became a viral cautionary tale." And as they drove off, Caleb didn't look back. He had a higher duty, and it was time to get back to it. Back at Arlington, the air was different, solemn, sacred. The sound of boots on marble echoed like a heartbeat. Caleb returned to his post, donning the sentinel's uniform once more. It fit him like a second skin, every medal, every stripe, every step, earned. As he began his 21-step routine before the tomb, the events in Willow Ridge replayed in his mind. But here, none of that mattered. The tomb demanded perfection, respect, silence. A small group gathered to watch. Among them, a reporter from D.C., a senator's aide, and even a boy wearing a plastic army helmet, saluting stiffly. The story had spread, fast. Dana watched too, this time from afar. She had driven hours to witness it with her own eyes. No words, just learning. Her heart pounded as Caleb paused at the exact midpoint of his walk, turned precisely 90 degrees, and waited 21 seconds. Flawless. A silent tribute to those never named but never forgotten. The commanding officer whispered to a junior beside him, He came straight from a civilian incident. Didn't even ask for rest. That's commitment. The junior whispered back, that's why he guards the tomb. Cameras remained respectfully low, but the internet had already exploded. Hashtags like #TombGuard stopped and #HonorUnshaken trended globally. What was meant to be a simple stop had turned into a national reflection on judgment and respect. As Caleb completed another pass, he briefly locked eyes with Dana. Not in anger, not even disappointment, just stillness. And then he turned, another 21 steps. The mission hadn't changed, because honor once sworn does not break. And as the sun dipped behind the marble pillars, Caleb marched on, unshaken, unwavering, unknown to many, but unforgettable now to millions. Back in Willow Ridge, things didn't go back to normal. Not really. The diner now had a framed photo of Caleb on the wall. The mayor issued a public apology, and Dana, she requested reassignment. But something deeper had shifted. Schools used the story as a case study. Why judgment without knowledge is dangerous, read one class headline. Young students reenacted the 21 steps during assembly, learning the story of the unknown soldier and the sentinels who guard them. Kevin, once arrogant, began volunteering at a local veterans' home. He never spoke about Willow Ridge again, but when he saw a uniform, he stood straighter. He listened longer. The nation, it remembered. News programs held discussions about how society treats those in uniform when they're not in uniform. Who do we assume people are when we don't know their story? And Caleb? He kept walking. He never tweeted, never commented, never responded to the whirlwind he'd triggered. He simply walked the marble, guarding silence, as he always had. Because in the echo of every click of his heels, there was a message louder than outrage. Respect is not requested, it is expected. And earned, one step at a time. Even the most viral moment couldn't compete with the discipline of a man who honors the unknown every single day. His silence spoke, and the world, for once, listened. Years later, a boy stood at the rail near the tomb, holding his grandfather's hand. The boy pointed, eyes wide. "Is that him, Grandpa? The one from the story?" The old man nodded. "That's him, the one the cops stopped, and the one who never stopped walking." Caleb, now older, still walked with the same perfection. His uniform was pristine, his shoulders proud. Age touched his temples, but not his resolve. The legacy of that day in Willow Ridge lived on, not through Caleb's words, but through how the world changed. A documentary was made, The 21 Steps, When the Guard Was Stopped, narrated by a former president. Schools across the country now included it in history curricula. Military applications tripled. Young men and women cited the tomb guard as their inspiration. One plaque at Arlington was added, "To those who walk with silence, so the forgotten are never alone." Dana became an advocate for justice reform, using her mistake to teach others. She never met Caleb again, but her speeches always ended with his quote, "I don't march for praise, I march for those who never came home." That boy at the rail would grow up to join the army. He, too, would become a sentinel, and the first time he marched the tomb, he whispered to himself, "Honor never walks alone." Some stories fade with time. This one walked into history. Step, pause, turn, repeat, forever.